And you really don't have a moral obligation to pay your credit card debts because those guys basically suckered you into a really bad deal. So just stop, and for a few years you have bad credit, but that's okay because you don't want to borrow any more money for a few years, right? You found out how bad it is to owe money. But now, everybody's afraid of their credit score. But I really think if people just realized that credit card companies are toothless tigers, paper tigers, that everybody can just mass default, and so be it.
The Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz, and it's August 14th. Just got back in the country. Time to sit down with John Rubino and truly get an idea of what the heck is going on in this universe, in this parallel universe that we all seem to call home. John, 56% of student loan borrowers will have to choose loans or necessities. Do you think they'll be picking out whether they buy dog food or pharmaceuticals? Is that what it's coming down to here?
Hey, Kerry. Yeah, we've been kind of limping along the American economy, and not everybody realizes that a big part of that is because there's this huge sector of debtors out there, the student loan borrowers, who didn't have to pay anything on their loans for a really long time. And even so, we were still kind of drifting into mass default. Like the number of people who are delinquent on loans, or the number of people who have student loans and are delinquent on other kinds of loans is rising pretty quickly right now, meaning they can't pay their credit card bills, they're not making their rent or whatever. And that's before they have to start paying on their student loans. And that kicks in October. So the article that you just referenced there was a study that said a huge number of people out there, when they have to start paying on their student loans, are not going to have enough left over to cover the rest of their debts, which probably means credit card use is going to spike. And we've already got growing number of millions of people out there who are having to carry balances on their credit cards, which is the worst kind of debt. Credit card companies are like legal loan sharks.
Yeah.
Because they try to trick you into carrying a balance or being late or something like that. And that's where they make their money, from late fees and from
default
interest charges. Yeah. And who carries a balance on a credit card or is late with their payments? People who either don't know what they're doing with money or who are in some kind of distress. And those are the people that credit card companies prey on. So what we're seeing now is that playing out in real time, where more and more people are having to put daily necessities on their credit cards and having to carry a balance, which now charges them 20% or more.
29.
Which means so you're in a financial death spiral when you're carrying debt that charges you 29% interest. You can't recover from that. And if you were borrowing from the local loan shark, they would come and break your legs at some point.
Yeah.
But with the credit card companies, they bleed.
They just kill your credit score, your social credit.
Yeah. And then you can't do anything else for a really long time. But how much of this do I want to say? Somebody I know has a bunch of credit cards that he's having trouble handling, and I said, you know what, just don't pay them, and forward them to me. I'll negotiate with them for you, because that'll be fun, and you really don't have a moral obligation to pay your credit card debts, because those guys basically suckered you into a really bad deal. So just stop, and for a few years you have bad credit, but that's okay because you don't want to borrow any more money for a few years, right? You found out how bad it is to owe money. But now, everybody's afraid of their credit score. But I really think if people just realized that credit card companies are toothless tigers, paper tigers, that everybody can just mass default, and so be it. You eat a 500 credit score for a few years. Don't borrow any more money, but you get out from under this 29% debt that they want to use to bleed you for the rest of your life. So I think it's a good deal. Everybody who's listening out there and you're carrying credit card balances, just default. just default. I guarantee that it'll work out for you, because credit card companies have no ability to, they can't take your house away or anything. Don't worry about that.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
This is an area I have too much experience in. We used to be debt buyers, my law firm that I was with, and now debt buying has kind of been banned around the country, where we just buy up defaulted credit card debt, sue the people. And it was an amazing business. Like, it was the Wild West in the late 90s, early 2000s, cleaned up on this stuff. And no, what's coming is the debt jubilee. But I have to recount something that happened back in 2011. I remember, gold was like right after the crash went down to like, maybe it was 2010. It was over $1,000, and then it went down to 600 something dollars. And this is when I got into this business, and I did an experiment. I took a cash advance off of my credit card back then and bought gold with it. And it was interest free for, I think it was 18 or 22 months. I paid no interest on it. And in that time, gold had hit its record. Of course, it didn't stay there. It went up to like $1,800, I think, was its prior record. And I was able to sell off half the gold, pay off the credit card before they started charging interest, and basically arbitraged. Like I said, I could have just bought the gold, but I wanted to see what would happen here if I used a cash advance and other people's money to buy gold. And you know what? This might not be a bad time to repeat the exercise, John.
Don't tell people to do that, Gary.
Hey, you don't have to pay it back anyway, because there's no more moral obligation to pay your debts.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Loans, right?
So you count that as free money because you intend to default and you buy gold with it. Okay, that works. So you get my advice of defaulting, your advice of taking out a 0% card and buying gold with it. Put that together and you have an investment thesis. Yeah. All right, that'll work.
I mean, eventually there's going to be a debt jubilee because the debt's unsustainable, right? So, right, there has to be a jubilee. Well, no way we can go on this way.
The debt jubilee will be inflation, where they just make the debt worth less and less. They can't just declare all debts cleared because somebody's on the other side of every debt. So you're wiping out all the assets of the people. Like the credit card companies think they're going to earn 20% a year off of you for the next 20 years. And the government comes in and says, nope, that credit card. They won't like that. And so they'll assassinate the congressman who came up with the idea or whatever.
Blasphemy. You're speaking out against the American, the global financial system that, is going to get their pound of flesh no matter what it takes. Hey, John, I've been getting bombarded with tons and tons of Google ads for covered calls. And, I thought about it. I know you are a big proponent of covered calls. You've been doing that still?
I haven't been doing that much lately, but covered calls are good. A good thing to do, especially, for instance, if you're working in the precious metal sector and you own some big gold miners or some of the bigger royalty streaming companies, they're really good for writing covered calls on, because they're, they have an upward bias over time, but they're not crazy volatile.
Not volatile.
Yeah. And so you can write a covered call on it, and maybe it goes up just enough for your call to be assigned, but so then you make money twice when that happens, and then you buy the stock again and write another covered call. But it doesn't crash. They're relatively safe stocks, because the danger with writing covered calls is that, okay, you write a call, you can't collect a little cash, and then the stock goes down by 80%, and then you've lost money. Yeah. But if it's something that is going to have an upward bias and is reasonably safe, writing covered calls on them generates cash during the dull times in the market, like the last 6 months in precious metals.
So let's go back to the credit card strategy. You get your 0% interest loan, you go buy the stock, and then you go write a covered call on it. Right.
Well, you can earn more than 20% annually by writing covered calls on the right stocks.
You got to do it monthly,
it's possible that you've got to carry there, you've got that 20% gain while you have interest-free money from the credit card company, and even after it jumps up to 20%, your carry might still be positive. So,
and you could be
interesting idea.
Yeah.
Don't do that at home, though.
Yeah, we're not encouraging the. What about like on higher dividend paying stocks? You ever try it on there with dividend stocks?
Well, yeah, you get to collect the dividends too.
Right.
But a higher dividend stock tends to be so stable because you're buying it mostly for the dividend, not for capital gains possibilities. And so the option premiums on a stock that's that stable tend to be so small that you don't make that much by writing a covered call on it, because you don't earn as much on the call.
You have no volatility premium.
Yeah, exactly. So the sweet spot is a stock that is volatile enough that option buyers are optimistic. So you can sell a call to an optimistic call buyer for a pretty good price. So yeah, you need the right stock to do that. Which I think the big gold and the big streamers, royalty companies are that way.
So Newmont, Barrick, those guys, right? The majors.
Franco-Nevada, Wheaton Precious Metals, stocks like that are going to over time have an upward bias. So people can buy calls on them, hoping that they will go up, but they don't go up so fast that you don't lose all your gains if you write a call on them. So yeah, something like that. It's the ideal covered call writing stock is something that is rock solid but has an upward bias, such that call premiums are high enough to make it worth your while. So you can't do it with everything, but you can do it with certain stocks. And those are the kind of stocks that usually form the core of a portfolio anyhow. So the relatively safe stuff that you buy, but that you still expect a capital gain from it, that's probably a pretty good covered call rating stock.
ExxonMobil, maybe Verizon. Verizon's in the dumps, and they got like a 7.5. We don't usually talk about stocks or anything individually, but it's over a 7% yield. And I don't know what Elon Musk is doing, but cell phones, smartphones seem like they're kind of here to stay, don't they?
Yeah, but see, a 7% yield means it's probably the stock itself is not necessarily going to go up. You're going to make your money by collecting the dividend. So writing the covered call won't buy you that much.
Yeah, so how much can you could get like 1 or 2% every time you write a covered call, something like that, right?
It depends on the date. Like if you do a 2-month call, you can get 5 or 6% sometimes.
Really?
And then so you annualize that. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be 5 or 6% for it to equate to 20% annually, right?
Yeah.
But you can certainly get 5 or 6% time when something is timed well with a good covered call rating stock.
And close to the money, out of the money a little bit, right? So but it's a stock. Yeah, I got you. I know you did that for years, and I know it was successful for you. So,
well, you know what I'm doing with this? The same stocks is I'm writing puts on them. In other words, you sell a put, which requires you to buy that stock at some point if it goes down. But if it doesn't go down, you get to keep the money you got for selling the put. And if these things have a general upward bias, you mostly just get to keep the premiums from selling the put. Yeah. And then if you buy it, it's okay because it's something you want to own anyhow. Like if you have to buy Franco-Nevada stock, fine. That's a thing you want to own a lot of anyhow.
Then you get into the thing of you buy a put and you buy a call and you do a spread, and, butterflies and all that. That's where I kind of lose it.
Well, you can build a whole career around option strategies because there are so many interesting ones. But yeah, I only know how to do 2 things with options, and that's it. But there's literally 200 other things you can do.
You do them well, though.
Yeah.
It kind of ties in with interest rates going up, mortgage rates spiking. It's kind of like, I think there's opportunities there, even though things are starting to break. What's the next bank? I mean, we see that the Fed's emergency fund, every week it goes up, and yet the banking crisis is over, John.
Oh, the banking crisis is so not over. Yeah, these local and regional banks still have all this commercial real estate that hasn't blown up yet. The prices are starting to drop. You're seeing examples of buildings that
San Francisco.
Yeah. Well, half of San Francisco's buildings are probably worth half of what they were 3 years ago.
Or
so you see a lot of these.
Two-thirds less.
Yeah.
2/3. One went for 33 cents on the dollar.
Because you can't get to the building. You have to have like an AR-15 to get from the subway or wherever they,
or one of those mine clearing, like they have in Ukraine there, to just kind of move the bodies to get there.
One of the nice things about having states and cities is that they're all laboratories where you can experiment with different laws and things like that. And California in general, and San Francisco in particular, have tried an experiment where they basically legalized crime.
Yeah.
And legalized camping on the street. Okay. So
what could go wrong?
A person with common sense and some notion of human nature would say that that's a bad idea and it'll come back to bite them. And it is biting them in ways that I'm sure they didn't expect. But they're turning into a hellhole. California is this nightmare hellscape now.
Yeah, like
because of the stupid laws.
Yeah, total post-apocalyptic, dysfunctional state. And like, yes, the police cause crime because they take the crime reports. But if you just get rid of the police, then you'll end all crime because nobody will be reporting any crime anymore. It makes complete sense, right?
Yeah, and if you make shoplifting legal, because some people are shoplifting basic necessities, then you make it legal for everybody. And now you're seeing these videos of organized shoplifting gangs, right? And basically, this is so self-correcting because all you need is a few shopkeepers to kill a few.
Well, they beat that guy up at the 7-Eleven. You saw he was trying to steal a bunch of stuff for the 10th time, and they went after him with broomsticks. And then of course, it was like a Soros DA said, well, you're violating that shoplifter's right to, you have a constitutional right to shoplift now in San Francisco, right?
Did they indict those guys? They were investigating them for assault. Yeah. I mean, well, but anyhow, here's the process through which that works is you get a few guys who do that, who fight back against the organized crime out there. And they're persecuted by the state.
Yeah.
Which then becomes a political issue, which brings in people who disagree with the current law, and they replace the guys who are in charge now, and then they wipe all this stuff away.
From your mouth. From your mouth. Same thing in New York City. Same thing going on.
Yeah, New York sounds terrifying right now.
And
you and I both lived in we both lived in New York City, and we loved it, right? It was a great place to live.
My whole
back
life,
in the day.
15 years. The Soros DAs, won't prosecute any crime. And the only power that the governor has in New York State is to remove that guy, brag, and she won't do it, and they can't figure out why people are moving to Florida where, hey, we still worship at the altar of the Second Amendment, right?
Well, yeah, California and New York will get some version of Ron DeSantis at some point in this process. And they'll just go in and they'll just sweep the streets clean, and they'll do it in some questionable ways, of course, but people will be so relieved that they can walk downtown again, that they'll be willing to put up with quite a bit, and in other words, the pendulum will swing maybe a little too far towards the other side of the spectrum, but people are going to be so relieved that they will keep that government in office for a while out of gratitude. So, and then it'll swing back the other way. But that's how the experimentation works with states and cities. You got to try it, see if it works.
And you get to vote with your feet when it gets to the point that you can't tolerate it anymore. I can't, in Florida here, so many people coming from these states that have become hellholes, and they're voting with their feet. And as long as they can find a greater fool to buy their home, because there's housing shortages, because of everything else they're doing wrong, all the policies, land use policies, creating housing shortages. So you sell your house there, you buy one here, but look, Florida used to be cheap. Now it's super, super expensive. Miami, eventually we're going to have a crash just because nobody can afford property insurance because of the hurricanes and all these other problems. We have a lot of tensions mounting here. But hey, things could be worse. We could be in China, right?
We could be, yeah, where the floods are absolutely crazy and buildings are falling down and everything. And that's kind of par for the course for China. But what is relatively new is gigantic real estate companies going bankrupt, and they've got another one apparently.
Another one?
Yeah, there was Evergrande, and then all the other contractors that were like that for about 6 months
right.
were front page news.
Yeah.
And now there's another one whose name I don't remember, but is really
Happy
big.
Flower or something like that. It had a funny name.
But it's very big, and it's part of the shadow banking system, and it just defaulted on like 5 different tranches of debt, and it's not alone. So that we'll see what the government does, because China's government tends to respond to this stuff with more money, but the yuan is already falling dramatically, and it's not clear. And then they've got the BRICS thing where they in a week and a half they might introduce a gold-backed currency or something.
This is never going to happen.
It's a very complicated situation.
It will never happen, because these BRICS countries are the worst performing economies in Russia. You're going to trust Russia and China to manage a global currency. But you know what?
Well,
so far, 228 major Chinese real estate companies have gone bankrupt, which bankruptcy there is a little bit different than bankruptcy here. Picture, they take you and they strap you to a ship and allow the scavengers to consume your carcass. That's what, maybe it is very similar to the United States as well.
The credit card companies wish they were in China. That's what they would like to do. Yeah. Okay.
Country Garden. That's the name of the company that went bust.
Okay.
Country Garden.
Yeah. And there will be more coming, because when one happens, there's 20 more in the same place that just haven't announced yet. But about the BRICS thing, so many people have, because what they did, they just announced the concept basically like a month ago. And so everybody's been speculating about it ever since, because we have no information. But I'm halfway through putting a Substack article together where I go and see who's saying what, and just kind of, convey their thoughts about this. And there's a wide range of thoughts. Jim Rickards thinks it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
And he thinks
about it for years.
But it's not going to be a global currency. It's going to be a trade currency within the BRICS coalition, where they just define it as a certain weight of gold. And then they'll keep the yuan, they'll keep the rupee, they'll keep the ruble, but for trade with each other, they don't have to worry about ending up with this big pile of rupees that they can't do anything with. They'll have a currency that is acceptable in trade with each other. And by defining it as a weight of gold, you get an instant dollar exchange rate for it, because the dollar gold price is continuously updated. So they don't have to worry about, what value is it or anything. It's always pegged to the dollar price,
of gold.
That amount of gold. Yeah. So anyhow, it sounds...
Won't be convertible. You won't be able to cash in.
No, you don't get gold out of it. No. You get it. You basically just get to use it to buy stuff back and forth between the BRICS coalition countries.
It's like a stable coin. It's a stable coin. Just
similar to that. And then there are other people saying, well, it's got to be blockchain based, and some other people saying it's not even going to happen. They took it back before the meeting, and they're not even going to talk about it or anything. So, there's a lot to unpack about everybody's opinions.
So I got a question for you here, John. The Ukraine war. Now, I always thought the Russians were great at propaganda, like that was their no goodniks. I mean, we grew up in the era of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and that was basically American propaganda about the evil Russians. Remember Natasha and Boris Badenov? And so now, but these Ukrainian YouTube channels, man, I would have thought they had marched all the way to Siberia at this point. They're so good at painting a picture of something. What do you think is actually happening there
In the
war?
Russia-Ukraine war?
Is like nothing, right?
Well, I think it's almost over. I think Ukraine, our proxy army in Ukraine has run out of people. And unless we ship them state-of-the-art fighter jets and show them how to use them, or theater nukes or something like that, this is basically done, it seems like. The Russians still have some people left. Ukraine does not. And so this has to get settled one way or the other. And you know what? We might end up going back to that agreement that they signed 2 years ago that the U.S. scuttled. Russia and Ukraine had already signed basically a peace agreement, which said that Ukraine would be neutral and Russia would stay out, basically. And that's all they had to do. That's all we had to let happen. But we wanted to drain Russia dry by sacrificing all the men between 16 and 55 in Ukraine. That was basically our objective. And we succeeded. So now the question is, what happens after this gets settled? Because it is going to be settled.
Yeah, it's been a disaster for Russia. I mean, they never expected this thing to go on for almost 2 years. And hey, it's a boom for the military industrial complex, Talk about defensive stocks, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to rearm Ukraine now. Although, hopefully the deal includes a neutral Ukraine that doesn't rearm that, because that would mean that General Dynamics and Raytheon don't get the money they expected, which would be cool. That would be a nice outcome. But yeah. This and see the bigger issue here though is that, well, first of all, we started a proxy war against Russia, and the U.S. Confiscated some of Russia's foreign exchange reserves. So we can't be trusted now. The whole rest of the world is looking at us and going, "Oh, am I next?" And that's the impetus for the BRICS thing now, because everybody else is terrified of having any kind of financial connection to the U.S. because we will use that as a weapon against them. So they want to be outside the sphere of dollar influence badly. And so they're going to be willing to do things that maybe it isn't quite time for them to do yet, just because we pushed up the timetable, I think, on them, and they have to act.
Yeah, disaster. This is what happens when the neocons are running things. Speaking of which, hey, what is going on in Hawaii here? These fires, man, people jumping into the ocean to avoid these fires. It was like shocking.
Yeah, I mean, that looked like a very unnatural situation. Okay, I'm not an expert on fire, and all I've done is seen some videos and everything, but that just doesn't seem like a normal wildfire. The ones in California, for instance, they were brutal. They would sweep in and wipe out a town. But most people had time to get away. And in this thing, Hawaii didn't sound any alarms or anything. And there were high winds, and it just blew that fire right across. But go out and do this. Look at before videos of that part of Maui. And it doesn't look like a place that could burn. It looks like a suburb where there's a couple of trees here, and then there's a big parking lot, and then there's some houses, which presumably are built to code, so they're not, tinder boxes. So it doesn't look like the kind of place that could burn. Like my neighborhood out in Washington State here, it looks like a place that could burn.
Yeah, you live in a forest.
Yeah, but you'd look at that before what happened, but you'd look at it and go, okay, they could have a tsunami, they could have an earthquake, they could have a volcano. So it's a dangerous place, but it's not going to burn, at least. And so the most unlikely thing is what blew. Yeah, yes,
it's a rainforest.
Yeah. Well, it's not even a forest. I mean, in general, Hawaii is a rainforest, but this is suburbia. This is, a block of houses with a few trees lining the street, and a big parking lot with nothing in it. So, So I think we're going to find out some interesting stuff as this goes on, as the disclosures come out about why this happened the way it did, because it doesn't look like it should have happened that way.
Hey, remember a couple of years ago when they had the warning that they were under attack by a missile? It's another, you talk about states as laboratories. another dystopian laboratory, you know. Yeah, I know that town too, Lahana. I was there like 30 years ago. Beautiful place. And to think that it just vaporized, it's just a big cinder now, is really kind of shocking. So what's happening with our art here? Our art, the conservatives are in rebellion now, right? It was the hippies. The hippies rebelled. And this ties in. There was a American Airlines pilot, I'll try to find the link, who made a whole lecture to everybody, you know, don't listen to your music through the speaker, stop being rude, be considerate, and I won't put up with it. And you listen to your our crew here, because my will is their will is my will, and we're not putting up with it. And this thing has gone viral, John. So this whole rebellion thing, the hip thing that started a few years ahead of us in high school, looks like people have had enough of it. Maybe that goes back to the shoplifting and all the antisocial behavior that we see rampant throughout society.
Well, it's that the trust horizon has shrunk down to next to nothing now. Nobody trusts anybody anymore. But I tell you what, the protest art of today looks very different from back in our day. You know, remember Country Joe and the Fish?
Yeah.
And, Frank Zappa, guys like that. Well, today we got these country singers who, first it was the don't try this or try this in a small town, right?
Yeah.
It came out, and where a guy's basically saying, yeah, you come on here and we're all on.
You try that, boys. See what happens.
You come on down here and see what happens. Yeah. And that was really offensive to a big part of the population, the part of the population that was being rebelled against, you know? Yeah. And then now comes this song from this guy who's a non-working musician, this guy who doesn't have a record contract or anything, but he just stands there with his dog on YouTube and sings this song. And the title is The Rich Men North of Richmond, which is to say Northern Virginia, DC. The Washington, D.C. complex up there. And it's a protest song about all the unfairness in today's world, because these rich guys are feasting off the rest of us. And that's now a huge hit. And so it's a really different place where the protest art is coming from, but so be it. You know, I'm totally on their side. So let's make some more stuff. Yeah.
Hey, it's like, I'm not a big, I don't particularly like the cops one way or another, but until somebody comes up with something better that works better than the police, what are we supposed to do? Just get rid of them? I mean, it's madness. And out of control government, exploitative rentier seeking, the whole thing. I mean, he really kind of summed that up in that title, Well,
yeah. So basically there's an aristocracy that is feasting on the peasants, and the peasants are starting to wake up to that, because right now they're pitting right against left at a street level. Yeah. That's where all this woke stuff comes from. They want the LGBT community to be fighting the 40-year-old high school educated white guys who got thrown out of their jobs because the job moved to China. When really they should all be in one class. It should be the working class who realizes they've been taken advantage of and then makes changes in the system. But as long as they've got us divided and fighting each other at ground level, then we're not looking up to see what the aristocrats are doing. So this might be a sign that we're starting to kind of develop a class consciousness here, where everybody sees themselves as having a common enemy, and good, so be it. It's about time.
Yeah. Well, things change. Well, don't forget, one time the Democratic Party was anti-war, and now they're the party of war, right?
The Democrats used to be in favor of free speech. I mean, our Democrats, the hippies, back in the day, were in favor of unrestricted free speech and absolute nonviolence. Okay, that was their approach to the world. And now today's Democrats are basically corporate shills, where they're in favor of anything that enriches Pfizer and Raytheon. Yeah. Whether it's of proxy wars or censorship of everybody who disagrees with them. So they've become neo-fascists. and they're they're basically the shock troops for a potential authoritarian government, and it's very scary because it seems like there's a lot of them, and they've got a lot of money backing them.
What about the Facebook files? So first we had the Twitter files, now we got the Facebook files, and everything they've been censoring, and the lawsuits that are now taking place. It appears that the Fifth Circuit is not too happy with the government's effort to control speech, to prevent untrue information from being released that turns out to be true. They even said it in court, like, hey, you were saying this wasn't true, and it turned out to be true. So what's your rationale for restricting speech? It looks like, and this is way too much to hope for, that the courts actually will do their job and protect our rights. Maybe.
Well, I mean, this is going to, one way or another, is going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And today's Supreme Court, at least it's possible that they will come down on the side of the First Amendment. In other words, that it's unconstitutional for the government to work through private sector companies to censor people in ways that the government can't do directly, which is what was happening with social media. So, I can see Clarence Thomas or Alito or somebody writing that majority opinion and just,
shredding.
And who's really sorry about this is Antonin Scalia.
Yeah,
he's looking down going, damn, I wanted that case. Why couldn't I have hung on for another 3 years to be the guy to do the majority of opinion on this case? But yeah, it's easy to see today's Supreme Court coming down on the side of just flat out banning governments from having any communication with social media companies over censorship. Over explicit crimes. If you can go in and if there's fraud or murder or something, okay, but not an opinion about vaccine etiquette or something, something like that.
It's all coming out. And hey, I would hope they'd go even one step further and basically denote social media companies, define them as common carriers who have no ability to even self-censor their users. Probably too much to hope for, but maybe this is what we needed to finally get the censorship monkey off our backs here, because it affects so many of you out there. You don't even know it's affecting you because you never hear it. It's like you didn't hear the dog that didn't bark, right?
Yeah. If you don't know somebody's being censored, if you never hear from them because they just disappeared. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too. You can post something and they let it be up there, but they just don't let anybody else see it. So you get zero engagement. And you think you're unpopular, story of my life. But
story of my life here. And
you are totally shadow banned, I'm sure.
Completely. And they even went back to something I had in 2018 that dealt with a certain movement denoted by a letter between that came right before R, and they suspended me for a week for this stupid thing that I didn't even express an opinion on. The guest was and it was 5 years ago, and they just discovered it and just gave me a strike for no reason. Well, anyway, I'm not complaining. We have no grounds for complaint. We just speak in code, and we speak around algorithms, which is kind of a lot like being married anyway, John, You're always trying to avoid the algorithms.
Guys our age are really good at beating around the bush when we have to. Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely. So, well, that is it for today. And hey, make sure you go to John's Substack. It's rubinosubstack.com. Subscribe to his Substack. Hey, sign up for our free newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Questions, comments, whatever, KL@kerrylutz.com. John, we'll catch you in a couple weeks.
See you, Kerry.